The air in downtown Chicago carried a crisp edge, the kind that made you pull your jacket tighter even when the sun was out. Malik Carter, 17, stood outside the gleaming glass facade of Vivienne's, a luxury boutique on Michigan Avenue that screamed money from every polished surface. The store's name was etched in gold above the entrance, and the windows showcased handbags that cost more than his mom's car. Malik adjusted his backpack, the straps digging into his shoulders, and took a deep breath. He wasn't here to browse. He had a purpose. His mom, Angela Carter, had been talking about this place for weeks. She'd landed a big client at her law firm, a case that had kept her up late for months, and she'd promised herself a reward, a designer scarf from Vivienne's. It was her thing. Small, tasteful luxuries that made her feel like she'd earned her place in a world that often tried to tell her otherwise. But today, she was stuck in a deposition, and Malik had offered to pick it up for her. "You sure, baby?" she'd asked, her voice skeptical but warm. "It's a fancy place. Don't let them intimidate you." He'd laughed it off. Intimidate him. He was Malik Carter, starting point guard, straight-A student, and the kid who'd talked his way out of trouble more times than he could count. A store was nothing. Inside, the boutique smelled like leather and expensive perfume. The floors were marble, the lighting soft but calculated, making everything gleam. Malik felt the eyes on him the second he stepped through the door. A sales associate, a woman in her 30s with a tight bun and a navy blazer, glanced up from behind a counter. Her smile was thin, more formality than welcome. Another employee, a man in a tailored suit, stood near a display of watches, his gaze lingering on Malik's sneakers. Clean, but definitely not designer. Malik ignored them, heading toward the scarf section. His mom had been specific. The silk one with the emerald and gold pattern, third shelf, left side. He found it quickly, folded neatly in a glass case. The price tag made his eyebrows twitch, $850 for a piece of fabric. But he wasn't here to judge. He reached for his phone to double-check the photo his mom had sent when the woman with the tight bun approached. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone clipped like she was already late for something more important. "Yeah," Malik said, keeping his voice steady. "I'm here to pick up a scarf for my mom, that one." He pointed to the emerald and gold silk. Her eyes flicked from his face to his backpack, then to his sneakers. "I see," she said. "Do you have a reservation or a purchase confirmation?" Malik frowned. "It's not a pickup order. She just asked me to get it for her. She's coming by later to pay." The woman's smile tightened. "I'm afraid we don't allow browsing without intent to purchase. Our items are quite exclusive, and we have a policy—" "I'm not browsing," Malik cut in, his patience thinning. "I told you I'm getting the scarf for my mom. She's a regular here." The man in the suit was now hovering nearby, his arms crossed. "Is there a problem, Claire?" he asked the woman, his voice low but pointed. "No problem," Claire said, but her eyes stayed on Malik. "I was just explaining our policy. Sir, if you don't have a confirmation or a card on file, I'll have to ask you to leave." Malik's jaw clenched. He wasn't stupid. He knew what this was. He'd grown up in Englewood, where looks like the ones Claire and her co-worker were giving him were as common as streetlights. But he'd also been to enough of his mom's firm events to know how to handle it. "My mom's Angela Carter," he said, his voice calm but firm. "She's a lawyer. She shops here all the time. You can look her up." Claire's expression didn't budge. "I'm not familiar with that name, and we don't allow loitering. I'm sorry, but you need to leave." "Loitering?" Malik's voice rose slightly, drawing the attention of a couple browsing nearby. "I'm trying to buy something. I'm a customer." The man in the suit stepped closer. "Let's keep this civil," he said, his tone implying Malik was the one escalating. "If you don't have a purchase order or a card, you need to step outside. We can sort this out later." Malik's hands balled into fists, but he kept them at his sides. He could feel the heat creeping up his neck, the kind that came from being seen as less than what you were. He wanted to argue, to demand they check their system, but the way they were looking at him, like he was a problem to be solved, made it clear they weren't listening. "Fine," he said, his voice low. I'll wait outside." He turned and walked out, the glass door swinging shut behind him with a soft thud. The street was bustling, people moving past without a second glance. Malik leaned against the wall, his backpack heavy against his back, and pulled out his phone to text his mom. "They kicked me out, said I was loitering. I'm outside." He hit send and stared at the screen, waiting for her reply. The humiliation stung, but what hurt more was the familiarity of it. He'd been followed in stores before, questioned at school, eyed on the bus. But this was supposed to be different. He was doing something for his mum, something simple, and they'd still seen him as a threat. His phone buzzed. "What? I'm on my way. Stay put." Angela's text was short, but he could feel her anger through the screen. Malik exhaled, leaning his head back against the wall. He knew what was coming. His mom didn't play. Inside Vivienne's, Claire and the man in the suit exchanged a glance. "Probably just a kid trying to cause trouble," the man muttered, adjusting a display. Claire nodded, but there was a flicker of unease in her eyes. She'd dealt with shoplifters before, or so she told herself. Better to be safe than sorry. Outside, Malik waited, the city moving around him like a river he wasn't part of. He thought about his mom, about the stories she'd told him of her own run-ins with people who assumed she didn't belong. She'd climbed her way up from a one-bedroom apartment in Englewood to a corner office downtown, and she'd done it while raising him alone. She didn't take slights lightly, and neither did he. But standing there, he felt small, like the world was reminding him of his place. The minutes stretched on, and Malik's thoughts churned. He wasn't just angry, he was tired of proving himself, tired of the looks, tired of the weight of it all. He glanced at the store's entrance, half expecting Claire to come out and apologize, but the door stayed shut. The sun was higher now, glinting off the glass, and Malik squinted against it. He didn't know how long he'd have to wait, but he knew one thing. When his mum got here, things were going to change. The chapter continues with Malik reflecting on his life, his mom's struggles, and the microaggressions he's faced growing up. He recalls moments at school where teachers underestimated him, times on the basketball court where opponents targeted him, and the pride he feels in his mom's success. The narrative dives into his inner world, his ambition to go to college, his love for music, his determination to be more than what people assume. Meanwhile, inside the store, Claire and her co-worker discuss their decision, rationalizing it as protocol, but feeling the weight of their assumptions. The chapter builds tension as Malik waits, his frustration growing, until he sees his mom's car pull up, her heels clicking on the pavement as she approaches, her face a storm of resolve. The chapter ends with Angela stepping toward the store, Malik trailing behind, knowing the confrontation is about to begin. Angela Carter's heels struck the pavement like a metronome, each step sharp and deliberate. She was a vision of control, tailored blazer, cream blouse, her hair pulled back in a sleek bun that mirrored her no-nonsense demeanor. Malik followed a step behind, his backpack bouncing lightly as he matched her pace. He could feel the energy radiating off her, the kind that made junior associates at her firm scramble and judges sit up straighter. She didn't look at him as they approached Vivienne's, but her voice was low and steady. "You okay?" "Yeah," Malik said, though the word felt heavy. He wasn't okay, not really, but he knew this wasn't the time to unpack it. His mom was about to handle business. The glass door swung open, and Angela stepped inside like she owned the place. The air shifted immediately. Claire, who was rearranging a display of handbags, froze mid-motion. The man in the suit, standing near the counter, straightened, his arms uncrossing. A few customers glanced up, sensing the change in atmosphere. Angela didn't pause. She walked straight to the scarf section, her eyes locking on the emerald and gold silk Malik had pointed out earlier. "Malik," she said, her voice calm but carrying, "is this the one you were trying to get?" "Yeah, that's it," he said, standing beside her. He could feel Claire's eyes on them, but he kept his focus on his mom. Angela turned, her gaze sweeping the room until it landed on Claire. "You must be the one who asked my son to leave," she said. It wasn't a question. Claire's smile was instant, practiced, but it faltered under Angela's stare. "Ma'am, I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding. We have a policy about—" "I'm familiar with your policies," Angela cut in, her tone like a blade. "I've been shopping here for years. My name's Angela Carter. You can look me up in your system. I'd like to know why my son, who was here to pick up an item for me, was accused of loitering and escorted out." The man in the suit stepped forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Mrs. Carter, I'm David, the floor manager. I'm sure this was just a mix-up. We have strict guidelines to protect our merchandise." "Ms. Carter," Angela corrected, her voice cool, "and I'm not interested in your guidelines. I'm interested in why my son, who was here on my behalf, was treated like a criminal." Malik stood silent, watching the exchange. He'd seen his mum like this before, cross-examining a witness, dismantling an argument with precision. But this was different. This was personal. He could see the anger in the set of her jaw, the way her fingers tightened around her purse. She wasn't just fighting for him. She was fighting for every time she'd been underestimated, every time someone had looked at her and seen less than she was. Claire's face flushed. "Ms. Carter, I didn't mean to offend. We get a lot of people who come in without intent to purchase, and we have to be cautious." "People," Angela repeated, her voice low. "You mean black kids like my son? Because that's who you singled out, isn't it?" The room went quiet. A customer near the watch display slipped out the door, clearly uncomfortable. David cleared his throat. "Ms. Carter, we don't discriminate. It was a misunderstanding based on our protocol." "Your protocol needs work," Angela said. "Malik told you he was here for me. He told you my name. You could have checked your system, called me, or done any number of things to verify. Instead, you assumed he didn't belong and kicked him out. That's not a protocol. That's prejudice." Malik's chest tightened. He wanted to say something, to back her up, but he knew she didn't need it. She was in control, and he was proud just to be her son. David opened his mouth, then closed it. Claire looked like she wanted to disappear. I'm sorry," Claire stammered. "I didn't know—" "You didn't ask," Angela said. "You saw a black teenager with a backpack and made a decision, and now you're going to make it right." The chapter continues with Angela demanding an apology and an explanation, forcing Claire and David to confront their biases. She insists on speaking to the store's owner, who is away but reachable by phone. The conversation escalates as Angela lays out the implications of their actions, not just for Malik, but for the store's reputation. Malik watches, torn between anger and admiration, as his mom navigates the situation with a lawyer's precision. The narrative explores Angela's perspective, her own experiences with discrimination, her guilt for putting Malik in this position, and her determination to protect him. Meanwhile, Malik grapples with his own emotions, wanting to stand up for himself but recognizing the power of his mom's presence. The chapter ends with the owner promising to address the issue and Angela walking out with the scarf, paid for with her card. But the victory feels hollow as she and Malik step back into the city, knowing the fight isn't over. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows across Michigan Avenue. Malik and Angela stood outside Vivienne's, the scarf wrapped in tissue paper inside a sleek black bag that Angela held loosely at her side. The street hummed with life, tourists snapping photos, shoppers weaving through the crowd. But for Malik, the world felt muted, like he was underwater. His mom had won, like she always did, but the weight of what happened inside still pressed on him. "You okay, baby?" Angela asked again, her voice softer now, the fire from earlier replaced by concern. Malik shrugged, staring at the pavement. "I'm fine, just tired of this." She nodded, her lips pressing into a thin line. "I know, me too." They started walking toward her car, parked a block away. The bag swung lightly in her hand, a reminder of the victory she'd claimed, but Malik couldn't shake the image of Claire's face, the way she'd looked at him like he was out of place. He wanted to let it go, to move on like his mom seemed to, but it clung to him, heavy and sharp. "Mom," he said, stopping suddenly, "why does it always have to be like this? I was just trying to do something for you. I wasn't doing anything wrong." Angela turned to face him, her eyes searching his. For a moment, She didn't look like the powerhouse lawyer who'd just dismantled a store's staff. She looked like his mum, the one who'd stayed up late helping him with algebra, who'd cheered louder than anyone at his games. "It shouldn't be like this," she said quietly, "and I'm sorry it is, but you did nothing wrong, Malik. You hear me? Nothing."
He nodded, but the words didn't erase the sting. "I wanted to say more in there," he admitted. "I wanted to tell them off, but I didn't." "You didn't have to," she said. "You were there. You stood your ground. That's enough." They started walking again, the city closing in around them. Malik thought about what she'd said about standing his ground. It didn't feel like enough, not when he could still hear Claire's voice, see David's crossed arms. But his mom's presence beside him, steady and unyielding, made him feel like maybe it could be. Back at Vivienne's, the mood was tense. Claire sat in the break room, her hands trembling as she sipped water. David had retreated to the office, on the phone with the owner, who was promising an investigation. "This could be bad," the owner said, her voice sharp through the speaker. "Miss Carter's a lawyer. She could sue. And if this gets out, the PR..." David rubbed his temples. "We followed protocol," he said, but the words sounded weak even to him. He thought about Malik, about the kid's calm demeanor, the way he'd said his mom's name like it was a shield. They should have checked. They should have listened. Claire, overhearing, felt her stomach twist. She'd been so sure she was right, so quick to judge. Now she wasn't sure what to think. She'd grown up in a small town, where protecting the merchandise was code for watching certain people closely. She'd carried that with her, never questioning it until now. The owner's words echoed in her head. This could be bad. But it wasn't just about the store. It was about her, about what she'd done. The chapter continues with Malik and Angela driving home, their conversation turning to the bigger picture. Systemic bias, the weight of being black in spaces that weren't built for them, and how to keep moving forward. Angela shares more of her own story, from her childhood to her career, giving Malik context for her strength. Malik, in turn, opens up about his fears, his dreams, and his resolve to not let today define him. At the store, Claire and David face the fallout, with the owner demanding sensitivity training and a public apology. The narrative weaves between their perspectives, showing the ripple effects of the incident. Malik and Angela end the day at home, sharing a quiet moment over dinner, the scarf on the table between them. It's not a perfect resolution, but it's a step forward, a reminder that they're in this together. The chapter closes with Malik looking out his window at the city, feeling a mix of exhaustion and determination, ready to face whatever comes next.
If you liked this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with others so they can learn something from it too.